abundant meat, her caviar, and for the Innis glass from her air bladder used for glue. Her carcass was pressed for fish oil. Even her skin was stripped and cured for leather. As canals were dug connecting Cleveland to the world, as Ohio boys feigned courage and lined up to face rebel cannon, in this salty river, a century-old sturgeon swam upstream to spawn, a fish whose progenitors dodged the splashing feet of dinosaurs, their bones pressed into shale formations, waiting for time to cut this river valley and set them free again. As the barons of oil and steel built grand homes on Euclid Avenue, she swam. A fish hatched before this country was born. Beneath rainbows of prosperity, through hypoxic sludge of sewage and sulfate, she lurched on through the decades. Her barbell whiskers hung low and sagged with time, sensitive to each tremor and each fresh opportunity. She knew every part of the crooked river, the cool, muddy banks, the corners where branches hung low and roots tangled thick, where snails congregated. Even as the river banks were filled in and her spawning grounds ruined, she swam. But her resilience was no match for our petrochemical waste, our phenols and acid pickling salts. She swam until the river was dead and her eggs ungenerative. Her vitality no match for the fleets of fishermen who would string her up, carve her meat, and sell her ovum to be spread on crackers. Many of the fishing tales are suspect. Amelia Hoopt, age 6, is said to have pulled an 83-pound sturgeon near Euclid Beach in September 1903. It measured 5 foot 7 inches and weighed 83 pounds. Strung up to its full length, it was 2 feet taller than she. There is a recurrent story of the angler who encountered a 10-foot, 200-pound sturgeon lounging in the shadows. Amazed at his good luck, he reached down slowly, grabbed the fish by the gills, and tried to haul her onto the bank. When the beast lunged away, he found himself riding down the river on her back. He wrestled the skewed-covered creature with all of his strength, gasping for breath each time she rose, dug below for minutes at a time, only to find himself beached on a sandbar. The fish escaped. In another version, he and the fish were found coiled together on the bank like sleeping lovers. Some say the man drowned, his body wedged in the current beneath a lawn, only to haunt these shallows at twilight, whispering warnings to passing fishermen. This may have happened in the James River of Virginia, or on the Maumee, or up in the north of Lake Michigan, in one of the many tributaries near the eponymous Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. But it probably never happened at all. Equally unlikely is a tale of the Vermont boy who captured a sizable sturgeon, pierced its dorsal fin, and inserted a ring. Supposedly he tamed the fish, named it Henry, and kept it tied to the dock as a pet. He even hitched his skiff to the fish so she could tow him around Lake Champlain. There is one story about the Lake Erie sturgeon that is not told often enough. In the 19th century, fishermen in yellow oilskin overalls pounded massive stakes into the lake bottom to hold hundreds of feet of seine netting. Millions of pounds of whitefish, bass, and muskie were dragged onto the decks each year and delivered to fishmongers. Before they realized the sturgeon's value, fishermen slaughtered them like farmers killed wolves, pests whose sharp armor wrecked their nets. They were ground into fertilizer or dried and burned as fuel. Later, when the value of the prehistoric fish was recognized, commercial crews developed ingenious methods of capture. But even 150 years later, although she is endangered and long considered expatriated from the Cuyahoga, the lake sturgeon hangs on. Perhaps the most unlikely sturgeon story of all is said to have happened this past fall on the Maumee. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources began releasing 7-inch baby sturgeon drawn from a wild strain still spawning in Michigan's St. Clair River. The fish are hatched in Canada, raised in tanks of Maumee River water at the Toledo Zoo, then released into the river where they will hopefully return in a few decades to procreate. The ODNR hopes to release thousands of fish each year. It's a wild fish tale, but who knows? Maybe it's true. Maybe the ethologists can bring back the bounty of this river and this lake. Even in the Cuyahoga, they say dams will be demolished, and maybe one day this prehistoric fish will return and swim free with her ancestors again. Cleveland Haiku, Part 1.